Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Nibblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, Blake and I are going to give you all the best streamer and ad options for next week so you can start planning early. Let's get it. And of course, I have your friend and my best friend, my comrade who always makes me glad, Blake Creamer. Blake, how are we feeling tonight?
Thank you, buddy. I'll always make you glad and I'll never stop. All right? That's how I get to biz.
Verbal contract.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, buddy. We have a lot of these. I hope no one goes back into the streams and checks out all the verbal contracts. Yeah, don't fact check us here because we got a lot on the table here. But yeah, it was a great day, man. Really fun trade deadline day. It's always a great time, and trying to, suss out who's going to have some value, who's going to lose value for fantasy. It's the NHL trade deadline is so interesting to me because I follow NBA as well, and I find that it's a lot easier to suss out that value for NBA players because there's really only 5 guys on the floor at a time, and then maybe like 2 other players on the team that are valuable. Whereas with the NHL, it's like you got 4 lines, like who's moving up, who's down, like it changes every game. So, but we're up for it, aren't we, Nate? This is what we do, and I'm excited. And it was a really fun day today. Lots of crazy stuff going on. How was your day watching all this busyness?
Yeah, it was National Refresher Twitter every 30 seconds day.
Yep.
And it was a good time. A good time was had by all.
Did you get any work done?
I'll decline to answer that on the basis that my employer might somehow find this podcast. But yeah, things happened all day, that's for sure. Now, it was good. I think, yeah, these prices felt pretty insane. I don't know if we've had a more expensive deadline in terms of the prices to be paid for some of these players, but either way, some good stuff here for sure. Why don't we get into it? Let's start with some newsies, and then we'll get into the trades, Blake.
You bet, buddy. Let's talk about the news. We're going to rip through this because we want to get into these trades and talk about who gained and who lost a little bit of value for fantasy. So, starting out in Anaheim, John Gibson, that trade bait legend, he didn't get traded. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting, but he's injured anyway, so he's day-to-day. Lucas Dostal's still going to hold some value. Anaheim is kind of in a wild card hunt here, so I think that's bodes well for guys like Gibson and Dostal when they're in the net. So, yeah, it's Dostal season for now until otherwise. No, okay. Over to Buffalo. Jason Zucker's still out with a lower body injury. He's missed a few games there. And yeah, it'll be interesting. We'll talk about some Buffalo trades there and what their power play might look like. But when healthy, Jason Zucker is out there on power play 1. And I think when he returns, there's a good chance he maybe gets back on that power play, but he's out. So we'll talk about that in a bit. Over in Edmonton, Matthias Ekholm is day-to-day. He missed last game with an illness. I guess he's kind of just I think he's a bit tired. Like the coach there, Coach Knobloch, was like, yeah, we're looking at maybe getting Ekholm a couple games here off, right? And I think he's a little bit sick, but probably just a little bit banged up too. So check his status prior to next game. Dougie Hamilton. He's going to miss a few weeks here. That stinks, right? Obviously, New Jersey's reeling a little bit. They lost Jack Hughes, which I talked about a little bit earlier in the show, earlier in the week. But yeah, now they lost Dougie Hamilton. It's starting to get a little bit silly there in New Jersey, isn't it, Nate?
Yeah, it's not a great situation for sure. I mean, it might open up some room for, Luke Hughes as the obvious replacement for Dougie Hamilton on the top power play. So maybe we get some value out of Luke Hughes here, but he doesn't shoot as much as Dougie does. Like, the ceiling for fantasy is definitely not there. So even if you went directly to your wire and replaced Dougie Hamilton with Luke Hughes, you're still feeling like you're probably getting an inferior product there. Yeah, it's not great. But hopefully some reps for Timo Meier coming our way.
Oh, buddy, we've been waiting all season for this. And it's time. It's Timo time. And they scored 1 goal in the game tonight against Winnipeg. And it was Dawson Mercer, of course. So, yeah, thank you, Timo, for your service. He did have a nice game, though. Anyways, Moving on from the Devils, that's depressing. Quinn Hughes, Jack's brother, he's going to miss a little bit more time as well. It's a touchy situation there in Vancouver. I think Quinn Hughes, if it was up to him, he'd be playing. I think they're like Rick Tocchet's come out and said Quinn Hughes will not be healthy this season. That's just a fact. And I think Quinn Hughes is good to go, but they're treating it carefully, right? Because Canucks are still in a playoff race. They're currently in that wild card spot, and they want to have Hughes for the duration. So I think they're proceeding carefully there with Quinn Hughes. But yeah, he missed the game tonight and could miss a little bit more time moving forward. So Philip Hronik is your easy add. He's been playing lights out, 4 assists in the last 2 games. He's looking really good out there. He can do that. I remember when he had a good stretch there in Detroit when he was the guy for a little bit. So it's in his wheelhouse. He's not Quinn Hughes, obviously, but he's a nice little replacement there. Over in Tampa Bay, Victor Hedman. See, at the party, Victor, he was partying too hard. All right, and now he's got a lowy body injury. All right, but he's unsure for Saturday. So what? Darren Radish? Oh my God, is that happening, Nate? I don't know. Who if who's the 1-for-1 replacement for Victor Hedman on Tampa Bay?
Yeah, they definitely don't have one, but Darren Radish, I mean, in that game, Hedman went out in the first period and Radish had a goal and then assist and stepped right into that power play role again. So yeah, I mean, if Hedman does miss more time, it sounds like it's day-to-day-ish, like they were still not sure if he could play Saturday, so that
Yep.
doesn't sound too bad, but we've heard this before and then it's extended for longer, so still want to be cautious there. I've been in some leagues where people have run out and added Darren Radish, and I'm not like right there yet just because we don't really have an update other than they're not even sure if he can come back on Saturday. So I'm not making any moves based on this yet, but definitely you're going to have to watch and figure out what's going on there.
Victor, come back, buddy. Oh God, I got him in 3 spots, and I need you. All right, you big beautiful man. Lastly, Colton Parayko. Speaking of big beautiful men, we're talking about Colton Parayko here. He's out for 6 weeks with a knee injury. So that's really rough for St. Louis there. This guy was playing lights out. I wonder, like the Four Nations tournament, so many players from that tournament are battling injuries right now. And I wonder, it's just, is that something that's going to continue year to year? Like it was really good hockey and really intense hockey, but there's been some casualties there, hasn't there, Nate?
Yeah, there definitely has. I don't know how much was pre-existing.
Yeah.
Definitely it never helps to play high intensity games. Like it's not going to help an injury or a pre-existing condition either. So, yeah, it definitely didn't help anybody. That's for sure.
Well, it helped us here in Canada. Oh yeah. Feels amazing. All right. That's it for the news. I wanted to do just a quick news update there. I want to get into these trades here. And Nate, why don't you take it away and just kind of take us through a few of these trades?
Yeah, so right off the top, the big one, Mikko Rantanen goes to Dallas. 2 first rounders, 2 third rounders, and Logan Stankoven going to Carolina. Carolina already has Seth Jarvis. I don't know why they needed to get themselves another one of him, but that's what they did.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, obviously this makes Dallas absolutely insane in the interim. Like looking at that top 9, there's people on Twitter saying, "Is this the best top 9 of the cap era?" Possibly. Like it's hard to say that it's not up there for sure. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. The power play had been working so well in Dallas that you almost don't even want to touch it. But Mikko Rantanen, like this is a guy who's top 5 in NHL scoring, I think, over the last like 5 years or so. So he's definitely got his own gravity, and he'll definitely find his way onto a top power play unit. But yeah, what do they do? From that point onward, they have split units in the past. That would be the worst case scenario, right? Like
Yeah,
Rantanen goes there, and all of a sudden they like spread out the lines even more, and they
please
spread out the
no.
power plays. Yeah, please no, but definitely a possibility in my mind. Let's start there, Blake. What is your take on how the things will shake out in Dallas?
Yeah, in terms of power play, I mean, obviously Ranto's going to the top power play, and it's just been incendiary lately. Ever since they inserted Thomas Harley and Matt Duchene there on power play 1, they've been getting true power play 1 minutes. So I really hope that doesn't change. And I think it's going to be Matt Duchene who gets bumped, but it could be Rupe Hintz as well. So I'm leaning Duchene. I think he's the one that's going to get bounced down to power play 2. But like you said, I mean, this top nine here is ridiculous, and it's even more ridiculous because guys like Jason Robertson and Rupe Hintz are absolutely flying right now. So Rantanen is coming to the team when both those guys are already running. Like they're really cooking right now. They're playing the best hockey of the year, and now you add Rantanen in there. So it's a really scary situation for the rest of the people in the Western Conference when you add Rantanen here. I'm kind of interested just how this fit is going to work with Rantanen. Like I do believe, obviously he's a first line player. They're paying him like a first line player, so he's going to jump up there. I think it's obviously going to be Hintz, Robertson, and Rantanen. I mean, geez, that's ridiculous, man. And just because they're three good players doesn't mean they're all going to play well together. Like Rantanen has his own sort of gravity, but I do think that his play style is going to lend itself well to what Jason Robertson does, which is kind of set up and shoot. Rantanen is kind of that style of player as well, but Rupe Hintz is that kind of dog, zone exits, zone entries. He's the one sort of carrying it in, whereas Rantanen doesn't really do that. But yeah, that's amazing. Duchesne, obviously on the second line, really good. I feel like this is just a massive dub for Dallas. And I don't know, Rantanen was a buy low to me in Carolina. I think it's been well documented that he's getting a ton of shots, ton of chances, more than he got with Colorado. And he's just been extremely unlucky. So I think with the way Dallas is playing, I think this is just what Rantanen needs.
Definitely can't argue with that. And the other side, Stankoven, I think will more or less probably slot into a similar role to what Rantanen was holding. Maybe not in terms of the overall minutes. The only question, I guess, would be the power play, what they decide to do there. Does Stankoven go on the top power play? If so, you might be pretty interested in Stankoven in that spot. Stankoven's a great player. It's just Dallas is so loaded up front that they don't have a regular spot to give him. They even scratched him a while back. So, but yeah, I think that there's definitely some interest for me for Stankoven in Carolina.
Yeah. Are you adding?
I'm not adding immediately. I want to see how the lines shake out. Like, I don't think it changes your season, but it's definitely a guy that you can look at if you need a winger.
Yeah, I'm interested in Stankoven a little bit. I just want to talk on him briefly here. Like the play styles in Carolina and Dallas are so different. And like Dallas is the best rushing team, like generating offense off the rush this year. Whereas Carolina is the best cycle and forecheck team in this season, right? And it's just a change in play style. So I'm wondering how he's going to fit in. But yeah, if he does get line one or power play one, I think there's some absolute interest in Stanky.
Sure. Let's move over to Ottawa, where they go out and get Dylan Cousins and Fabian Zetterlund. They send Josh Norris to Buffalo in the Cousins swap. Similar contracts, like big contracts on both those guys, and neither guy has quite lived up to those contracts this year. Been a little bit underwhelming, I guess you would say, for the contracts that they had. So now you've got a pretty interesting spot where it seems like they might just completely swap roles. I think Norris has a good look on the top power play unit in Buffalo. He's left-handed shot opposite Tage Thompson. I could see them being the two one-timer options with Darlene at the point. That would make a lot of sense to me. That would mean Jack Quinn bumped off the top power play unit. That would be my best guess at how things look in Buffalo at the moment. And then, yeah, where Norris plays, like Tage Thompson has played some on the wing this year. If Norris plays with Tage Thompson at even strength, that could be pretty interesting. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think it's actually probably a net positive for Josh Norris. He hadn't been going so well. He'd been bumped off the top power play in Ottawa.
Yep.
So gets a bit of fresh life. You know that for both these guys, they go to a new situation, and the team there is going to want to show them off a bit and show that they made the right decision going to get this guy. And so I do expect, especially in Buffalo where the season's over, like they're going to highlight him for sure in my mind. In Ottawa, yeah, Dylan Cousins goes there. It's pretty much a one-for-one replacement. He'll play a top six role for them immediately. It'll be just interesting to try to figure out where he fits best and who he fits best with. If he can find some good chemistry with the Brady Tkachuk, with the Drake Batherson, those are the kinds of guys that you want him associated with at even strength. And can he crack the top power play unit? Can he bump a guy like Claude Giroux off the top power play unit and find a home there? That's his path to relevancy. Between the two, I would take Norris myself personally, but Cousins has some interest for sure. And then Zetterlund just gives them another wing option. I think there's definitely some interest there. because I do anticipate, like, they're playing some guys like David Perron. I don't think is a top six winger in the league anymore, and he's playing there right now. So I could see Zetterlund fitting into one of those spots and being in a relatively good spot. Zetterlund hasn't really played with Celebrini much this year. He's done most of his damage from a pretty mediocre San Jose Sharks second line. So if he can play on a better second line in Ottawa, maybe you can find some power play time as well somewhere along the way. I could see it actually being a net positive for Zetterlund. What do you think about the Ottawa changes here?
Yeah, I like that as well. I agree with everything you said. I think it's Norris is the winner of this trade for sure. And it's weird. I was just looking at the salaries here. He's the highest paid forward on the team now. Josh Norris over Tage Thompson. Like he's the third highest player on the team, right behind Darlene and Owen Powers. So yeah, I think they're into him. They're invested in Josh Norris now. So I think it makes sense that he would go to power play one. And like you were mentioning offline, like he's a left-handed shot. So it should make sense for him to go on the other flank there for some one-timer options. That makes total sense. Even if Jason Zucker does come back here, I think they probably would get Josh Norris out there just to see what that looks like, right? It's experimental time in Buffalo right now because they've had such a garbage season. So I like that. And I do like sort of the Dylan Cousins to Ottawa. I like that. And again, I agree with you. I don't think there's some immediate fantasy relevance there. Like I'm not going to pick up Dylan Cousins if he's available, but for future, I think this is a guy that could be a piece of this team, right? You got an aging Claude Giroux there, 37 years old. He's a UFA next season, right? So if he goes out, I think Cousins could take that spot. I think there's some value for him in Dynasty in, potentially next season, but not right now. I do like Fabian Zetterlund though, because like you said, he's playing a second line role on San Jose. So, on the year, he's averaging just under 17 minutes. He might get that with Ottawa. But Ottawa is a much better offensive team than San Jose is, right? And he's going to be playing with potentially better players and a better defensive core and a better goalie. So I think there is a little bit of interest for me in Fabian Zetterlund. He's a good banger as well. So yeah, there's some interesting pieces there. I think Ottawa comes out the victor there, and they've definitely beefed up their team.
For sure. Let's move over to Florida. Brad Marchand finding a new rat home. Imagine this line for yourself, Blake. Imagine Brad Marchand on the left wing, Matthew Tkachuk on the right wing, and Sam Bennett centering.
I don't want
And
to.
the amount of ratitude on that line would just
Oh,
break the playoffs, I think. So it was interesting. So I will try to find it back, but I saw something that basically it's a 2027 second in return, but it becomes I think it's a 2028
yeah.
first if he plays more than half of the playoff games. To me, that says that Marchand is not likely to come back until the playoffs, right? Like they're looking at this injury
Yep.
as maybe a bit more serious than any of us had thought previously. So it sounds like we may have seen the last of Brad Marchand for fantasy purposes. What do you think?
Yep, that makes sense to me. I thought I read somewhere, but I do this all the time. I read something and I skip
Yeah.
past it, and then I don't remember it. But I thought I read like 3 to 4 weeks for Brad Marchand, so that's going to
Okay.
put him kind of out of commish for the rest of your fantasy playoffs, anyway, right? So, needless to say, though, damn, that was quite a surprise to me. And then the value, like a second rounder, potential first rounder for Brad Marchand. I mean, he's no spring chicken, but damn, I feel like they could have extracted a little bit more value there. They got the trade in right under the wire. So weird, but yeah, Florida is an absolute wagon. Matthew Tkachuk, they're probably doing the Vegas thing here, right? Like LTIR, yeah, we got the cap space. Let's get Marchand in here and let's go for a massive run. I'm sure Tkachuk and Marchand will probably be back game one of the playoffs ready to go. Like they do, right? Meanwhile, the Canucks and Leafs, what the hell are we doing here? Oh my God. Actually, your Leafs did pretty well. So I don't want to, poo-poo on them, but yeah, I think it's a great trade. It's just a shocking trade. And you know what's really funny, and this isn't fantasy related, but he's a rat and he goes to Florida where in the playoffs, when you score a goal, they throw rats out on the ice. I
This
mean,
is true.
it's perfect. I don't know. It makes absolute sense. But yeah, the top six there in Florida is insane. I wouldn't be surprised if Marchand plays more of a supplementary role there in the playoffs, like power play 2, line 2. But for the love of God, can they just put Verhaeghe back on power play 1? Nate, what are they doing? God dang it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but what they're doing is letting Mackie Samoskevich prove that he belongs in this league and has a future on our fantasy rosters. But yeah,
Crazy.
we'll get there. Yeah, Andre Kuzmenko goes to LA. I guess this was the best they could do to add a little bit of scoring. To me, he just becomes another random guy in the top nine. I don't think he's going to find a home on the top power play. They've already kind of bounced between LaFerriere and Byfield there. I don't see Kuzmenko as a better option necessarily than either of those. I don't know if you see that any differently, Blake.
Not really. I mean, it's just a supplementary offensive piece. But Kuzmenko looked good to me in Philly. I was happy to see him come in and just start producing. It's a guy that he needs the coach's confidence, right? But he also has to do his part, which is forecheck and play defense. Every once in a while, Kuzi, come on, buddy. But yeah, I mean, daily faceoff has him with Kopitar and Adrian Kempe. That's a nice spot at even strength, that's for sure. And he's a sniper. He's not the most fleet of foot, but I think he can do something for fantasy, like as a streamer level player, I think.
Yeah, definitely fits into the streamer conversation there. In Detroit, they go out and get Petr Mrazek, so they have completely solved all of their goaltending issues that they've
Totally.
had throughout the season. You know, they they start out the season with Billy Husso, with Cam Talbot, with Alex Lyon. You would have thought that they would have found somebody by now. Lyon had a good stretch. Talbot has had a good stretch and now a bad stretch. And now it's Petr Mrazek coming to town. Yeah, so everything's solved, right, Blake? Like Petr Mrazek, 0G pickup of the year in Detroit, and they're going to go on a big run.
Detroit's playing 0G in real life. Like let's just get a bunch of really bad goalies and just see what sticks. Just throw a bunch of goalies at a dartboard and then see who ends up last person standing. But yeah, Mrazek definitely needs a change here. I mean, Detroit's not a lot better defensively than Chicago is, honestly. Like, which is weird to say, but Detroit, they live off massive efficiency and really good goaltending, stellar goaltending at the beginning of the year, right, with Cam Talbot and Alex Lyon playing that role, but they've sort of fallen off. It's a weird trade. Jimmy crack corn, and I don't care. It sounds like Mrazek will get some starts there, but now we got a three-headed goalie monster in Detroit. I'm not interested.
Fair enough. Moving over to Colorado, Brock Nelson goes there for a haul. Callum Ritchie, a legit blue chip prospect, goes there along with the first round pick, and Nelson's just a rental. Like as far as I'm aware, there's no deal done. So, yeah, that's a big one for sure. But yeah, it's pretty clear that Colorado was not happy with Casey Middlestat being their second line center, so they really felt that they had to get this done. They identified their guy and they made it happen. They probably quote unquote overpaid, but they got their guy and they're all in on this season. They did what they had to do, and now that top six compares pretty favorably with any other top six that you can muster up. So seems like a win for anybody. Do you think that Nelson gets a sniff on the top power play though, Blake?
No. I think they know what they have there on their top power play. They like what they have there, Jonathan Drouin, and it's more that kind of flank position that is open. So I mean, maybe if they want Brock Nelson to do that, but I think he'll probably end up centering the second power play, which would make sense. He's brought in for a supplementary piece, and if that power play goes cold, sure, you can throw Nelson up there, but you can also throw Colton up there. You can also throw Lehkonen up there, right? They have options, and it's an embarrassment of riches there in Colorado in terms of what they can do. And that's been the way all season. But remember that time Ross Colton got all those goals on the power play?
Oh, don't make me weep in
Oh,
remembrance.
damn. It was so awesome. We were all just fired up. But yeah, that's a pipe dream, right? And I just think Brock Nelson's in that same boat, right? Like they'll toil away on power play too, no problem. But I mean, this top six is incredible. He's going to play with Valery Nichushkin likely. I don't know if they'll maybe put Drouin back on the top line, or if Lehkonen goes to the second line, or if they keep it as is with Lehkonen, McKinnon, and Natchez. But damn, it's insane. And then they picked up the Coiler. Oh, God, he filled the bowl. They're like, buddy, I like your style, but you need to see a doctor, right? You have a raging case of IBS.
Yeah, they got Charlie Coyle. They ship out Casey Middlestat. Solved two problems there. Two birds, one stone there. But yeah, I mean, I do like this. I think, honestly, Coyle and Ross Colton, it makes them both a little bit more viable in deeper leagues as potential 1 week streams. I don't think that, either of these guys are going to define your fantasy season by any stretch of the imagination the rest of the way. But yeah, I at least would consider them now that they've got at least a pair of guys on the third line who are like legit NHL caliber players.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, they're so strong down the middle now with Charlie Coyle as their third line center. That's like that's a great third line. That's the playoff style third line, and their fourth line's pretty damn good too. Jack Drury, Kiviranta, like these are good players. So I'm really a fan of what they've done here in Colorado. I think it's going to be really good. One thing I want to quickly touch on. What about these other teams, like the Islanders losing Brock Nelson? Is there any kind of fantasy fallout there? Like, obviously, he was having a really down year on the island, and he was spending some time on power play too. Is there any beneficiary there in Long Island?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure that it's benefiting
Yeah.
anybody.
Maybe JGP. I don't know. He bumps up.
Yeah, he might get a few more minutes, but will that realistically materialize into more scoring? I'm not convinced. Yeah, probably hurts Palmieri, who's actually on quite a heater over the last couple of weeks here, because him and Nelson have been joined at the hip for much
Yep.
of the last couple of years. So that's probably the biggest effect that you can see in New York. But yeah, they were playing him on the second power play unit. Maybe Palmieri now, like they do kind of load up the top power play a little bit more.
Yep.
Palmieri moves to that unit. And they finally go with Noah Dobson on the top unit as it should be. Yeah, that's the only thing I guess I could see is maybe a little bit more consolidation at the top in New York.
Yeah, and Boston, man, it's like the floor
Mm-hmm.
just fell out. It's done. They had an amazing run. I don't think we can safely say anymore, like, well, but we can count on Boston to have an amazing year again this year. Like that's a crushing blow. You trade your captain at the last second in the deadline, and you get back Casey Middlestat, really, and a pick
Mm-hmm.
for all this business. Like Casey Middlestat is cooked. Someone asked me, like, am I picking up Casey Middlestat? I was like, hell no. This is a way worse situation than he had in Colorado. I'm not interested at all. Like, talk to me a little bit about Casey Middlestat. Do you have any expectations there?
No. Jake Wallman
Well,
goes
moving
to
on.
yeah, honestly, there's like who is he gonna play with? Like there's nothing there. I just don't know
Elias
what you could.
Lindholm. I mean,
Yeah, I guess maybe.
they're like the same player.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Maybe they could put him on the Pasternak line, but the Pasternak Geeky Zaka line has actually been the best thing going for
That's
Boston,
all they
so I don't
got.
know why they'd try to break that up. Really, yeah, that would be the only chance. Is if Middlestat goes line one, power play one, then I'll give him a look, but I don't expect that to be the
I'm
case.
waiting for that. You let me know when that happens, Nate.
All right, well, I'll give you a text.
Appreciate that.
Jake Woolman goes to Edmonton. This is probably net negative for anybody who has Jake Wallman. Yeah, I mean, Evan Bouchard runs the power play there in Edmonton. I don't even think that Wallman can realistically get anywhere close to the same ice time in Edmonton either. That would be a bit of a surprise to me if he were to maintain his, 20. I should probably just check what his average ice time was, but he was getting basically number one
Yeah,
defenseman
like
usage
23
in San
minutes.
Jose.
Crazy.
So I don't see that happening in Edmonton either. The offensive environment is a little better for sure, but if he's not getting any power play time, I think it's a net negative for Jake Wallman.
Yeah, I don't have much to add there. I mean, he's good in bangers leagues, but he's going to be getting less time. So that means less counting stats. Thank you, Jake Wallman, for your service. Yeah, he's not going to be grittying very much anymore, I don't think.
All right. Let's head over to Vegas. Riley Smith goes there, obviously a player they're familiar with. Um, the biggest potential fallout I can see here is if, maybe he bumps some of the guys that we really like from their respective roles. But
Yep.
in this first game, at least, he was playing on what looks to me like a fourth line, Nicolas Roy and Cole Schwint. So definitely didn't happen there, but what if he bumps Dorofiev off the hurdle line? Could they mess things around between Stone and Eichel, who've been a pair for much of the year? Yeah, that would be the concern, I guess. I don't think Riley Smith is a guy that you're probably going to be rostering at any point for the rest of the fantasy season, but the concern would be is if he actually bumps somebody who we are excited about for fantasy.
Yeah, I just can't see that happening. I don't know. This team is like they're a bunch of spare parts, aren't they? Like we got Riley Smith, we got Brandon Saad, all right, and Tanner Pearson. Like these are the three of the four left wingers, and then we got come on Bobby, let's go Bobby, Ivan Barbashev. He's great. I love Ivan Barbashev now, but yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. I really feel like Pavel Dorofeev is going to be pretty solid moving forward. And Barbashev has kind of shown his value here this year with this crazy efficiency. And again, I know I've mentioned this before, but this guy is driving play. I didn't realize how much, but he's really good at that, Ivan Barbashev. So one of the best 5-on-5 players out there, which is really weird to say. So Riley Smith is a supplementary piece. He's going to be there in case there's injury. He can play up and down the lineup, and he's a good player. And I'm sure he's happy to be back in Vegas.
For sure. In Tampa, they make a big deal, send a couple of first-round picks to acquire Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand from the Seattle Kraken. Gourde, I don't think will do much other than center the third line and be on the second power play unit. But Bjorkstrand, I think there's at least a chance that he finds his way onto the top power play unit. I think it was on the PDO cast. They were talking about how they haven't had that one-timer threat that Stamkos provided this year, and they've kind of been searching for what their new power play should look like.
Yep.
And Bjorkstrand does provide that and provides that in spades. That's one of his calling cards, honestly, is the shot from that side. Opposite Kucherov, you can just imagine Kucherov, all these seam passes across to find Bjorkstrand. Definitely think there's something there that could potentially work. Whether or not they go that route is another question. The issue I have is that Tampa Bay schedule is just not good enough over the next little bit for me to honestly be that excited about, picking up a player. He wasn't there in the first game and just hoping that he gets to a point where he's somehow rosterable. Like, it's just not that exciting for me. I'm keeping an eye on it, but I'm not rushing out to add anything here.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I did add him in two spots just as a spec ad because I could. I was up in the matchups and I'm like, yeah, I want a piece of this. Let me see what's going on. But, the first game, I think he played 14 minutes or something like that, 13 minutes. And I don't know. I don't need to keep that around. Like, I think he's under contract for another year here. So maybe next year is the year, right? Where he gets a full training camp with the team and kind of shows what he can do. But I think he's going to be a supplementary piece here as well with Tampa Bay that can go up into the top power play if needed, right? Like, they still got Nick Paul out there. Jones Paul is out there doing stuff, beefing his way to, some random tap-in goals at the front. But yeah, I'm not really that interested in Bjorkstrand at this point.
Right. Obviously, there were more trades made, but none that we deemed particularly fantasy relevant. Yeah, you mentioned Toronto acquired Scott Laughton, Brandon Carlo. I don't anticipate either of those guys are going to do much of anything for fantasy purposes, so not much to talk about for what we're trying to get through here. I think that's going to wrap it up on the trades front, but we will get into the main portion of the waiver wire episode here. Let's attack the schedule.
Yeah.
Starting off with the week that will be Monday, we have 4 games, Tuesday, 11 games, Wednesday, 4 games, Thursday, 9 games, Friday, 6 games, Saturday, 11 games, and Sunday, 7 games. This isn't actually all that different from the week we are currently in. 52 total games played this week, normal in that regard. But yeah, we have, not so heavy nights, 11, 9, and 11. So definitely there's some options where you'll probably have at least one of those nights where you can find some players to stream in, even on the heavy nights. And we've got some decent games played on the off nights as well, which give us more options. We have 2 teams that play Monday, Tuesday, back-to-back to open the week. That's Colorado and Ottawa. So if you do have room on the Tuesday and you want to jump out to a quick lead, that might be a way to look at it. 3 teams Monday, Wednesday off nights, Buffalo, Detroit, Utah. 5 teams Wednesday, Friday off nights, Anaheim, Calgary, Detroit, Seattle, and Utah. And then 9 teams with Friday, Sunday off nights, Anaheim, Colorado, Dallas, Detroit, Edmonton, New York Islanders, Seattle, Utah, and Winnipeg. Yeah, it's another great stream week. Love to see it. Love to have this agency over our fantasy outcomes in what's probably, for a lot of people, the week right before your fantasy playoffs start. So if you're angling for a bye, if you're trying to scrap into that last playoff spot, this is a good thing to see, is that there's lots of options this week for the schedule. Anything standing out to you, Blake?
No, nothing that you didn't say, but yeah, again, like you said, I love having agency here. I feel like there's no reason to have players on your bench, and as we approach these playoffs here, if you're fighting for a playoff spot, it's time to get ruthless, right? We got to be cutthroat. We got to think about dropping some players.
Let's talk about that then. Let's talk about lowered expectations, the players that we might want to look at dropping this week from the teams where the schedules are not so great. Lead us in, Blake.
Speaking of segues, sorry, I'm extremely tired, folks. All right, now I've had 2 glasses of wine and Jimmy crack corn. I don't care. All right, let's get to biz. Yeah, there's a couple teams here, Calgary and Dallas. They only have 2 games, so like in these type of weeks where they're really good streaming weeks, I find that the teams that have more games played, those are the teams I'm attacking, as opposed to the teams that have the most off nights. Right. And so these 2 teams, Calgary and Dallas, they play 2 games. They're both on the off nights. So they have, 2 games that you'll definitely be able to get players in. But yeah, I think we want to get some players on teams that play more games. So let's talk about Calgary here first. They play Wednesday and Friday. So yeah, you can definitely use these players. But I talked about this guy on the last pod I did there. Rasmus Anderson, I think, yeah, it's a pretty easy drop to me at this point. Nazem Kadri, Jonathan Huberdeau, Blake Coleman. I would say Coleman's probably a drop too. Like in a 12-team league, I'm dropping Coleman, no question. It's Kadri and Huberdeau. Those are the players that I think we need to find that cutoff line. And where are you at with that, Nate?
Yeah, it obviously will depend on your league to some extent. So just looking ahead, like if you look at just this week upcoming and like yeah, if you are scrapping to make the playoffs, if you got to make some cutthroat decisions to try to get a bye, definitely this should be your primary focus, is only thinking about this week and not looking ahead. But if you do look ahead, weeks 22 through 24, Calgary does play 11 times. They've only got a couple off nights, but a good number of games played, and similar in weeks 23 through 25. So there is something to be said there for just taking a look ahead at the schedule if you have the liberty of doing so. Anderson, I've not been in on Anderson. We've, I think, talked about him multiple times on here as a like sell high candidate when he was popping off earlier. He is the absolute opposite of popping off. Lately, he has 8 straight games without a point. So yeah, I don't have any qualms about jettisoning. Is that a word?
Yeah,
It's
you
late.
could have let it slide. Yeah, no,
I
that's
could have
fine.
let it
I think
slide.
you had it. That's fine.
Nazem Kadri is still doing stuff. He's still shooting. He's still got 3 points in his last 3 games. Good minutes. I'm trying to hang on to Nazem Kadri, quite honestly, but definitely understand if you don't feel that you can. He's definitely in that range where I'm like, if I got to make that cutthroat decision, I'm not going to think twice about it. Huberto's got some assists, 3 assists in his last 3, but yeah, significantly less in terms of shots and the rest of it. So if Huberto's got to go, he's got to go. I'm not feeling too bad about that. Blake Coleman is the guy who like always gives you something every night, right? Like he's gonna hit somebody, he's gonna block some pucks, he's gonna take some shots, but the ceiling is not so high. He was on a massive cold streak. I think it was like 10, 11 straight games without a point. Finally broke that last game with an assist. But yeah, that's a player that at least will provide you something. And so, again, it's not a player you have to drop, but definitely well within the range to be thinking about dropping this week.
Nate, I think you have a strange love affair with Blake Coleman. What's going on here? Bounce that man to the curb, buddy. Nate's holding Nate Coleman. I think it's because he's got him in a 16-teamer.
That
And
is true.
yeah, I think you're a little bit skewed there, buddy. Blake Coleman, thank you for your service, my man. I love your name. Now get the hell off my fantasy team. All right. I'm sorry about this. But yeah, boy, Calgary is just an offensive wasteland. There's nothing going on there. They're great defensively. Great. I mean, Dustin Wolf's having an amazing season. Vladar's playing incredible. But yeah, they cannot score goals. So I'm not too interested. Even with the good schedule, I feel like there's better players out there. But yeah, what Nate said totally holds water. You got to look at your schedule there. Next team, Dallas. Couple of players that we're looking at here, fringe players, Mikhail Granlund, Mason Marchment, 2 second-line players there, power play 2, and Jamie Benn. I think Father Time has caught up with this man. Slicked back hair, weird goatee, Sedin hater. Ben. just go have a Coke and a smile. But talk to me about those three players and anybody else on Dallas that you may be looking to get rid of it here this week.
Yeah, I think these guys are all on the bubble. I think some of them will provide some value at some point throughout the rest of the season. Again, if you're just looking ahead on the schedule with Dallas, they play this 2 games, 2 off nights. Then in week 22, they're 3 games, 0 off nights. But in weeks 23 and 24, they play 4 games and 2 off nights in both. So if you're in a good spot, if you're sitting pretty and you've got a bye and you're going to only have to play weeks 23 and 24, then Dallas actually has one of the best schedules out there. So if that's something that's entering your thought process for where your team's at, then definitely you can do that. But these guys are all firmly within that range where I'm not going to be too sad to see them go if I have to make that tough decision.
Yep, absolutely. Especially with Rantanen in there, I feel like it's going to be more. They play the top end guys, and some of these lower end fringe guys are going to be minimized just a bit, right? When you got a guy coming in that's probably going to play 20 minutes a night in Rantanen. All right. There are 7 teams that play 3 games with 0 off nights. We'll go through these teams really quickly. Boston, Columbus, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, San Jose, Tampa Bay, and Washington. Let's start up in Beantown, Boston. You Elias Lindholm, no. Get the hell off my team. Mason Lowry, we talked about him. This is a guy that looks really good under the hood. Still getting power play 1, but that power play is not great at the moment, right? I mean, Marchand's already out, so we kind of know what it looks like, but I'm still not super stoked on Mason Lowry in terms of more of the team, less so about the player. And then Morgan Geekie, I'm actually into this guy. I love the Geekster. So I love the deployment. That's for sure. He's getting a ton. So talk to me about these players. Throw Pavel Zacha in there as well. Where's your cutoff line for the Bruins?
Yeah, I think Lowry is the only guy that I'm really trying to hang on to here. The other three, I think, are just as likely to go super cold. This is just a David Pasternak effect for anybody else there in Boston to have any fantasy relevance. Pretty much, I think Lowry, like with some of the underlying numbers we're seeing, looks like he might be capable of generating some of his own offense, but I don't trust any of these other guys to do it on their own, and so it's just as likely to me that they throw up a bunch of zeros next week as they continue on the relative hot streaks that Geeky and Zaka have been on. So Lowry on the back end is a bit of a unicorn because, yeah, different position, and he's actually showing out really well in the underlying statistics the last little bit. The other guys, I'm kicking to the curb.
Yeah, you're getting that value over replacement with Lowry as well, which I think is really, really good at this point of the season. If you can pick up a player like that off your waivers, yeah, he's doing stuff out there. Let's move to Columbus. Boone Jenner. You better not get rid of Boone Jenner. All right, folks. Damn it. All right. He just came back off injury. Give him some time. But yeah, I don't know. It's a 3-game week with 0 off nights, and the busy nights are not that busy. So, I mean, I'm not dropping Boone Jenner if I picked him up here. Dmitry Voronkov as well. I'm not dropping him, but it's getting close. Like he's gone a little bit cold, right? And that top line is not popping the way they used to, over the last couple games here. And I'm talking about Voronkov, Marchenko, and Adam Fantilli. I feel like they're kind of been a bit snake bitten, whereas like Kent Johnson is popping off a little bit as of late. Talk to me about the Blue Jackets. Actually, did you see that tweet today that Pierre LeBrun put out? He called them the Blue Jackers.
Yeah,
The Blue Jackers. So which we might have to, perpetuate and make stick at some point here. But talk to me about the Blue Jackers.
Yeah, I can't say I hold your affinity for Jenner. I would drop Jenner this week. I mean, Bangers Cats, yeah, like face off
6
league.
assists.
Yeah,
You're wild, man.
I mean 6 assists, but how many of them came in that one game?
Oh, God. All right.
He's not on the top line. He's not on the top power play. If it's not a Bangers Cats, then I don't think this is a player that you have to hang on to if you got better options out there. Kent Johnson is hot right now, so you might not want to drop him for that reason. He is on power play 1, but getting less time on ice than Boone Jenner. Adam Fantilli still has 5 points his last 5 games. He's popping still. You cannot drop Adam Fantilli. I will not allow you to. Dmitry Voronkov, I'm still probably holding because the deployment's so good. The players he's playing with are so good. He's got 3 points in his last 5. The underlying numbers are not great. But yeah, it's probably a situational based hold for me. But I wouldn't I'm not gonna say you're wrong to drop Voronkov if you got better options out there, players that are gonna give you more games played.
Yep. No, I love that. And that's really a key piece. We're not saying you have to drop these players, you have to hold these players, but that Columbus in general, or in particular, I've just found myself having some internal discussions because I got Voronkov in a bunch of spots, and I'm wondering what I need to do with him, but I'm still holding. And Fantilli, I'm holding for sure. All right, let's move on. New Jersey. This team is in free fall and it stinks, but I still think Luke Hughes should be on your squad. I'm not dropping Luke Hughes. I'm holding Luke Hughes if I have him anywhere. And then there's a couple other players though that we're gonna have to see on. But Dawson Mercer, who's been getting power play 1 recently in the last couple games, and then Stefan Nason, who if he's not getting power play 1, his value is nuked, right? So I think Nason is a drop. Mercer, drop even on power play 1. Like he's not a guy that generates a bunch, but I'm holding Luke Hughes. I don't know. What are you doing, Nate?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you hold Luke Hughes. We've seen the offensive upside in spurts before from Luke Hughes, and yeah, if he's gonna get top pair, top line, top power play, that is minutes, 24 minutes average over the last 5 games. Yeah, Luke Hughes should be on a roster for sure. Stefan Nason and Dawson Mercer don't care. No shares don't care, but yeah, they can kick the curb for all I care.
Just so hurtful. Oh my, how do you talk about Stefan Nason this way? All right, dang it. That was my player of the year that just fell through the cracks. All right, but that's fine. Let's move over to Pittsburgh. We got some beauties on Pittsburgh that it's some interesting decisions, but I really don't think it's that big of a decision here. You got Raquel on a strange erotic journey from Milan to Minsk. He stayed in Pittsburgh. That's a bit of a surprise. And
Yeah.
I think it's good for his fantasy value. No question. We know what to expect there. He's still popping off. He's still playing with Crosby. So you got Raquel, you got Brian Rust. They're both holds to me. Chris Letang and Malkin. Those are the players that I'm interested to get your take in here, Nate.
Yeah, I would agree. Raquel and Ruster holds. Latang and Malkin are much more bubbly to me. Latang actually has some decent underlying stats. He's still skating 23 minutes. The production's not there, right? Just 2 assists in the last 5. Malkin does have 2 goals, 4 points in his last 5, so he's actually putting up some production again, which is nice to see for him. Yeah, it's not a spot where I'm feeling like either of these guys are going to win or lose my season. So, again, it's a spot where if these guys are going to be riding my bench for any one or more of their 3 games that they're going to play on these heavy nights, then I'm not going to feel bad about dropping them and going to get somebody else.
Absolutely, buddy. Let's move on to San Jose. We got to talk about Tyler Toffoli, a.k.a. Jeff Gillooly. William Eklund, who's popping the hell off as of late. I love William Eklund. And then Will Smith is also popping off. So talk to me about the Sharks and their newfound sort of production. That line in particular with Eklund and Will Smith is really going right now.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting setup. Actually, in the last game, they moved things around again. It was Celebrini, Smith, Zetterlund. Obviously, Zetterlund's gone to Ottawa now, but Toffoli, Wenberg, Eklund was the other line. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Zetterlund out of the mix now. But either way, both Smith and Eklund have really been popping off. Toffoli doing his thing, 24th in shots per 60 over the last 5 games, 5 points, 3 goals there. Yeah, all these guys really doing a lot. Will Smith, like first in the league in on ice scoring chances 4/60 over the last 5 games. Really, really showing out in a big way there. So, yeah, I've got some love for all of these guys. I don't feel good about dropping them, but again, they're all in that range where it wouldn't surprise me if they go cold. San Jose has a truly terrible playoff schedule, pretty much no matter what your playoffs are. After this if you get through this 3 games played, 0 off night week, your immediate reward is a 2 games played, 0 off night week the following week. So, yeah, it doesn't get better if you manage to hold them through this week. So, probably they're drops and you can do better this week right away.
Yeah, I think the risk reward for the San Jose Sharks is just not there, right? Like, what are we hoping for? These guys to pop off randomly? Like, it just doesn't feel good. So yeah, I'm with you there. Even though they are doing really well, like I think you could drop them and pick up players that are lesser that have more games, and that's probably the smart thing to do. So that's my 2 cents there. Over to Tampa Bay, we got Cinderelli. Anthony Cirelli, and the jerk store Oliver Bjorkstrand. Yeah, like what? So Cirelli, he's an interesting one. I know you don't have him anywhere, Nate, but like, what are you doing with him if you did have him? Because he's had a good season, obviously.
Yeah, he's had a good season. He's kind of gone cold here. 1 assist in his last 5, um, in the 200s in his underlying numbers. So it's definitely not the best stretch of the season for him either. Yeah, I would like to drop Sorelli most likely. I think you're probably going to be able to find somebody to fill your spot better.
Absolutely, buddy. Last team here, Washington. Let's talk about PLD. I know you're not dropping PLD, Nate. This man's taking Nate to the cup this year. He's taking him to championships, to heights he's never seen before at the highest level of fantasy hockey. PLD. Nate, give it to me. Come on. What do you got?
Yeah, I got PLD in 2 spots now.
Hyping you
3
up.
goals, 6 points in his last 5, 19 minutes a night, crucially. Getting looks on power play 1. I actually didn't see if he was on the top power play here
Yeah, I didn't see
tonight.
it.
Let's check that real quick. Yep, he was still there tonight, so good on that front. Yeah, I think you're trying to hang on to PLD at this point. The deployment's all there, the minutes are there, the everything is coming up PLD at the moment. The point scoring is there. He's hot. Yeah, can't argue with a lot of that. Connor McMichael, Alexi Protas. I think both of these guys are bubble guys, so I wouldn't feel too bad about moving off of them. Without power play 1, that's kind of the cutoff line, I feel like, in Washington, is who's on power play 1, keeping
Yep.
those guys. Who's not, I'm willing at least to move off them if there's something better out there.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I do like Protas though. I like, obviously, there's some recency bias there. The guy's been doing really well, but he's had a nice season. He's been pretty consistent. So I'd probably be trying to hold him as well, but that makes total sense what you're saying. All right. We got to move on to the best teams to stream. We like to call this segment Crossing the Streams. Yeah. Yeah, buddy. This is good stuff. Actually, I never told you this, Nate. It was a busy day here. We had the trade deadline, right? I was all over the trade deadline coverage today, as I know you were. My Twitter was going crazy, and I was just consuming content at an insane rate, making sure I didn't miss anything. And I came across this really weird video. I don't know if you saw it. It's a clip. It was from some account on X. It looked like just an average Avs fan, right? But the clip they were sharing was pretty epic. And I got to tell you about this. Basically, I'll just set the scene. It's an airport bathroom. Okay. It must have been like a little bit earlier today. And it's just 2 guys using urinals, right? And their backs are to the camera, but they're talking to each other and their faces are turning around. And I could tell that it was Brock Nelson, the grumpiest man on earth, and then Ross Cameo Colton. They're at the urinals with each other. And first off, they had terrible urinal etiquette. You know what I'm talking about, Nate? Like there were
Yes.
6 open urinals and they're standing right next to each other.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little strange. That's a choice, right? But who am I to judge? Anyway, they're doing their business, right? This is very casual. Why is someone filming? I don't know. But then the camera pans over to the sink and Andrei Kuzmenko is over at the sink for some reason. Big Kuzi, he's there. I mean, he must have been catching a connecting flight to LA or something after the trade, right? But the weird thing was he was just brushing his hair. Like he had one of those old, Victorian style brushes with the metal, and he was just going to town on his hair. But he also had a banana in the other hand, and he was dipping it in a cup of Pepsi and just going to town on it. Really weird. And he was making uncomfortable eye contact with the camera the whole time, but that's fine. He's a strange man. Anyways, he starts cheering loudly, right? And he starts going off. The camera pans back over to Nelson and Colton, and they just spontaneously started angling their bodies right towards each other and using the other guy's urinal. But in the process, they were crossing the streams. Like this is caught on camera. This is amazing. And you can tell they were feeling the vibe and the connection because they put their arms around each other, like one arm around each other. They're just crossing the streams, and they carried on like that, like they've been doing it for years. Big Kuzi was clapping at this point. He was spilling his Pepsi everywhere. And then all of a sudden, I heard a toilet flush in one of the stalls. And guess who popped out, Nate? You got any guesses on this?
I couldn't begin to guess.
The Coiler. The Coiler was in there pinching a loaf, all right? And then he hops out of the stall like it was on fire. He's got a big smile on his face. He starts cheering too, right? He's like, they're all kind of jumping up and down. Nelson has the biggest smile on his face. I don't think I've never seen that, the likes of which I've never seen. So they finish, they zip up, they start hugging and high-fiving, right? Even Kuzi got involved. The Coiler didn't wash his hands. That was a little strange. That was disappointing, but Anyways, the four players embrace. They walk out together, and I thought to myself, this is some elite locker room chemistry right here, and it gave me all the confidence in the world that the Avs were going to win the Stanley Cup. They crossed the
Wow.
streams like men. They bonded big time. It was a beautiful thing. I tried to retweet the clip, but it got taken offline. I couldn't find it, but it does exist. I don't know. I think they're going all the way this season. Book it. What do you think about
All
that, Nate?
right. Verbal contract.
Yeah.
Blake's pick is in. Colorado gonna
When
win
I
it all.
see that going on, I know that's a sign. All right, that's a holy sign that we know that that's happening. Anyways, we got to talk about some fantasy hockey here, Nate. I'm sorry about this. Um, there was like some random comment on one of our episodes. Shout out to you who made the comment that just said I digress way too much and fast forward my stuff. So definitely just go to the crossing stream segment, skip ahead 2 minutes, you'll be good to go. All right. There are two teams that have a perfect schedule here in week 21. It's the Detroit Red Wings, the Utah Hockey Club. 4 games, 4 off nights. Love that. So let's get into it with some of the Detroit players here. And I think, if you're going with anybody from Detroit, it's got to be Marco Casper, right? This guy's, he's getting some he's getting some reasonable deployment. Power play 1, I just dropped a rock that I'm fidgeting with. Anyways, yeah, Marco Casper getting some reasonable deployment. Power play 1. You got Vladimir Tarasenko, JT Compher, if that interests you in a really deep league. Talk to me about Casper and Tarasenko, Nate. Are you at all interested in these players for this upcoming week?
I'm not super interested, if I'm being honest. Casper's definitely fallen off. He's gone 5 straight without a point. Yeah, still on the top line, so he is the guy that I would go of that group if you got to go with somebody from Detroit. But yeah, it's definitely not an exciting one. I'm much more interested in the Utah guys.
Absolutely, buddy. Well, let's talk about those guys. We got some bits and pieces here in Utah. Logan Cooley, right? I mean, he should be rostered, no question. I think he's a must roster player, but if he's out there, you got to have him, right? You got to have Logan Cooley. Nick Schmaltz is still doing the thing. I've got him in a couple spots, and he's been popping off as of late. I love that. Sean Dursey is out there, but I don't know. I'm a little bit more lukewarm on Sean Dursey than I was when he first returned. I thought there was going to be a bigger impact for fantasy for him, and it just hasn't really materialized. But a lot of that is due to his ice time. Like, he's playing under 19 minutes, which was a little bit unexpected for me. Maybe there's kind of easing him in after his injury there, but I was expecting kind of like well over 20 minutes for a player like this, and it just hasn't really happened. So you got Dursey there. Barrett Hayton is still getting power play 1, where Logan Cooley is on power play 2. So how do you rank these Utah Hockey Club players?
Yeah, I think I'm like for the 1 week, I would take Schmaltz because I know he's on the power play 1 and line 1. And then I would go Cooley second. They're neck and neck though. Like, I wouldn't fault you if you decide to take Cooley over Schmaltz. That is, and then Hayton obviously third. Dursey, yeah, I'm personally not interested in Dursey. I haven't been at any point, but I knew you wanted to talk about him again, so I threw him in there just for you, buddy.
Don't do me any favors, Nate. All right, you son of a gun, you. All right, it's but there's some decent options there. Definitely, what Nate said, Utah Hockey Club. That's kind of your go-to here for this week if you can. Next teams down, 4 games played, 3 off nights. Anaheim, Colorado, Edmonton. Let's dig in. With Anaheim, you got some beefers that you can pick up. Jacob Trouba, Radko Gudas, but if you're in a bangers league, they're probably already rostered. They should be anyway, so not going to dig in there. But we still got Troy Terry. We still got Mason McTavish, who's been playing well. Leo Carlson, Trevor Zegras. I mean, Anaheim is playing surprisingly well. It's, at least for fantasy and in real life, they're in these games. They're generating some offense. Their defense is atrocious, but that's fine. Talk to me about the Ducks. Who are you sort of taking here? Let's take Terry out of the mix because that's an easy one. I know you're going to go Troy Terry. The other players, McTavish, Carlson, Zegras. Anybody tickling your fancy?
I'm kind of into Zegras a little bit, which is not a spot where I thought I would be. Yeah, he had the suspension there and hasn't done a ton since coming back, but he's getting some decent minutes, some decent deployment, which is pretty much a first under Greg Cronin there. So yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic with Trevor Zegras. But Mason McTavish is definitely hotter at the moment. Leo Carlson is as well, and they're getting good minutes
Nice
as well.
deployment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of them have good aspects about them. I guess you probably just default to McTavish with the 6 points in the last 4 games here. He's been doing the thing for sure. So maybe you go that route. I wouldn't hate on that for sure. But I would take Zegras over Carlson, to be honest, in that second spot. I've been liking what I'm seeing out of Zegras. He even got into a fight, however
Yeah.
misguided that attempt might have been. At least he cares, right? That counts for something. So I
Oh,
think I'd go McTavish, Zegras, Carlson.
when you get dummied by Connor Garland, that's a sign that you should probably keep your gloves on. TZ. All right, buddy. Garland pumped him. He does that. All right. Garland's a beast. He's a little fire hydrant. But yeah, I mean, they're still doing the 5 forward set there in Anaheim. So it's interesting. That's a choice. I love Jackson Lacombe, so I don't understand, but it's Greg Cronin. Enough said. Let's
They
move on to
did try out Jackson Lacombe back there. It looks like they split the units a little bit more again in this game that happened here tonight. So they did have
nice.
Lacombe and Zellweger running separate units, and yeah, it was predictably a bit of a disaster in terms of the split. But so I don't know where that leaves us. It seems pretty likely to change again by the time they play again. But yeah, that's where they did tonight.
Players don't need consistency, do they? They don't need consistent line mates, do they? I mean, it's just, they're like artists. They're just painting with a brush. Whatever happens, happens. It's totally fine. All right. Let's move over to Colorado. Yeah, we got some bits and pieces here. You got the Coiler. If you want a third line center, do you think he's going to get power play 2? I don't even. Yeah, I guess he'll get power play 2. Third line center, power play 2 for the Coiler. I'm not interested in that. But Ross Colton, buddy, he's popping off. It's like he gets 11 minutes a night. This is terrible. He needs to be traded to a team like San Jose where he can just go ham. Just 20-minute Ross Colton every night. We're loving that. But the problem with Colton is the deployment for sure. And then Jonathan Drouin, power play 1, line 2, I think is your top option there in Colorado. I don't know. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I think Drouin is the top option for sure. Ross Colton is running hot in the underlying metrics yet again. I mean, he's 10th in the entire league in individual scoring chances for per 60 on the season, so it's not like it's something new for him. But he is hot at the moment, but under 12 minutes average time on ice, so that's not so hot. I think that you could do worse than Colton or Coyle in like a 14-team league if you can't get any of the Ducks guys, but they are a tier below the Ducks guys for me. But Drouin, I definitely do like. It seems like he's solidifying his spot on the top power play.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That first game with Brock Nelson, I just want to see how they sort of deploy everything. But I tend to agree with you. I think Drouin has made his case here, and his role should be pretty secure. Over to Edmonton. This will be short and sweet. Victor Arvidsson, Vasily Podkolzin. Do we care about these players at all?
No, I really don't.
No.
Yeah, Arvidsson did get over 17 minutes average over the last few games here, but yeah, it's still like he's not even shooting, which is what he was known for before. I don't know what that is, but it's been a disaster for Arvidsson in Edmonton.
Disaster for a lot of these players. Zach Hyman. Jeez. I mean, this guy was a third rounder, and he's pacing for 50 points. He's pulling a Johnny Huberdeau. And that stinks, but I don't know. I'm not dropping Hyman, but I'm extremely disappointed. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed. Okay. Let's move on. Next team, 4 games, 2 off nights. Your Vancouver Canucks. Some really good options there, I think. Filip Hronek is, to me, the option that I'm interested in the most. I think he's the most consistent. And I really don't trust that Quinn Hughes is going to be back at full health, that's for sure. I think there could be even some load management with Quinn Hughes if he does come back, depending on like if the Canucks start losing games, I think they're going to shut Quinn Hughes down. That means Filip Hronek is going to be getting all power play 1, and he can do that. He's got 4 assists in the last 2 games, really nice. So I like him. Obviously, if you want beefers, you got Kiefer Sherwood, Dakota Joshua. They'll do that for you. Sherwood had a monster night tonight. Scored the game-winning goal, 7 pims, like 7 hits. Did
you see his fight?
No, I didn't see the fight. What did he win or did he get dummy?
It was probably the worst fight of the year, to be honest. Neither guy landed a punch. It was against Ryan Hartman.
Don't bring me down. Why are you doing this? All right, I'm trying to beef this man up. Anyway, he scored the game-winning goal. Nate, did you see that?
No, I only saw the terrible fight.
All right, that's fine. You got the offensive options there in Vancouver. Jake DeBrusk, Connor Garland, Philip Hedl. I was really big into Philip Hedl, and I still am. The macro P, right? The tripod. But he's not getting the minutes right now, whereas Connor Garland is getting the minutes. So I know I've said Philip Hedl in the past, even as recently as like 3 nights ago where I did the pod. But to me, of those two players, it's going to be the one getting the most minutes. And right now, that's going to be Connor Garland. So, but I do think Philip Hedl has a much higher ceiling. Jake DeBrusk, this is a weird one. He's hot and cold all year. Right now, he's not getting the minutes. He's on pace for 48 points. Like, I don't know. I'd probably go Garland, Hedl, DeBrusk. What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I think I'm in line there. I think I think I agree that Hedel has more ceiling, but yeah, in this game he was playing with Lekaramaki and Drew O'Connor, and then it was DeBrusk, Besser, and Pia Suter, and then Garland with Pedersen and Joshua. So they're really just like splitting it all up and making it gross for everybody. It feels like,
It's
which
not
yeah,
fun hockey to watch, buddy.
no, in that case, I think I do default to just the raw time on ice, like you did with Garland at the top, Hedo second, DeBrus third.
I thought you were going to say P.S. Pooter. Oh, I love that you laughed at that. That's the most basic joke ever. Buddy, you get me. Okay.
That's right.
All right, we're together on this. All right, let's move on. We're going to keep rolling here nice and quick. This is a beefer episode, folks, and you're here for it, all right? If you're here, we appreciate you. All right, 4 games played, 1 off night. There are 4 teams that do that: Florida Panthers, New York Rangers, Ottawa Senators, and the Vegas Golden Knights. Let's start in Florida, and I think we got to look at Mackie Samoskevich. He's power play 1, and he got 17 minutes last game. He's playing in the top 6 there. Do you think that sticks? Do you like power play 1? I feel like he's going to get a little run there at this point. The top 6 deployment, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, as long as it's working, right? It's working right now, which is also probably the reason that Ekblad is staying on top power play over Seth Jones still. So as long as it's working, I think that it'll stay. He's got 4 goals in his last 7 games here. Over the last 5, he's got 3 goals and an assist. Yeah, it's a good look for him right now. There's no two ways about it. At even strength, he's playing with that Bennett Rodriguez line, which is just like a chuck pucks with the best of them line. Basically.
Get that puck off my stick.
Yeah, exactly. But it's working, right? So yeah, I think that Samoskevich is definitely a really good option if you can fit him in for all 4 games this week.
What are you doing with Carter Verhaeghe? Is he in any kind of world? Are you dropping Carter Verhaeghe?
Maybe in like a 10-team league where I desperately need a win this week and there's somebody out there who really is like line 1, power play 1 on the waiver wire, and you can actually pick them up and expect that they'll do something. But in the vast majority of leagues, anything a little deeper, I think I'm hanging on. Yeah, I mean, even in this last game where Verhaeghe, I think it was like 12 minutes or something ridiculous that he got, he still had 5 shots, 5 scoring chances. Like, he's good. Like, he's good at hockey, and I just don't want to be out on players that are really good, even if they're not getting the deployment at this exact moment. If I have the luxury of keeping them, I'm keeping them.
Yep. Great take. I totally agree. Anton Lundell, Evan Rodriguez, I think those are 2 players that we know what they bring to the table. Erod is actually, he's cooking right now with his shots in the last 5 games. That's nuts. But I don't know. I'm not super interested in those players. I think there's better players that we've even mentioned already. I don't know. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I think they're guys that you can look at in maybe like a 14-team league. But yeah, I guess you go with Rodriguez just for the shot volume at the moment. But yeah, nothing to get excited about for sure.
Well, why am I so excited then?
That's totally unrelated.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. It's probably because I'm staring at Brock Nelson on the YouTube screen right here. What an attractive man. Silver Fox. Beautiful. This man's 33. I mean, geez, he looks like a 70-year-old man. Shout out to Brock Nelson. Oh, God. Okay. New York Rangers. Let's go talk about them. Will Cooley. He's day-to-day right now. I think he's battling an illness. Is that right, Nate? I feel like I read that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Good podcasting there. Yeah, solid. No, it's yes and. We're doing improv here,
yes,
Nate. You got to give me a yes and so we can carry the conversation.
Yes, and he's very good at hitting people.
All right. Oh my God, that's profound. So Will Cooley, he's actually I'm a fan of Will Cooley. Like, he's got 3 points in the last 5. A reasonable deployment. That's fine. He can do stuff. Definitely in a banger waiting points league or bangers league. Yeah, you got Will Cooley there. But Keandre Miller, Braden Schneider, he's a beefer. Will Borgen, he's a beefer. I'm not super interested. What do you think about Zach Jones? He's getting that power play 1 deployment in Adam Fox's absence there on the Rangers.
Yeah, I mean, as long as he hangs on to it, there's probably something there. I mean, that's a good power play. They got a lot of high-end talent on the Rangers. Even when they can't do anything at 5v5, that power play has often found a way to get things done for them. So yeah, I'm kind of in on Zach Jones as long as Fox is out. The quote unquote update we got today was not much of an update on Adam Fox. He's skating on his own. It's an uppy body injury, so that doesn't mean a whole lot. Laviolette declined to get into timeline stuff. So sounds like, yeah, there's at least some time that Fox is going to miss, which potentially leaves more time for Zach Jones to accrue us a few fantasy points.
Yeah, no, I think there's some absolute value there. Laviolette, give us something. What are you doing? What are these guys doing? Why are you being so secretive? Just give us the information. All right. We're trying to run fantasy hockey leagues here. Ottawa Senators. Let's move on to them. Yeah, Dylan Cousins, I think, pretty nice ad. I think there's like, if you're gonna go Ottawa, like Cousins and Zetterlund, I'm interested in just seeing what they do, right? And you might have to pick them up, just pay that price to see. But I don't think either one is going to pop off. But I do like Zetterlund a little bit. I don't know why. I just feel like it's like you said, he was a second liner in San Jose and he was putting up reasonable numbers. Now he's on a better team. He's probably going to get the same deployment. I would expect a little bit better, maybe. I mean, besides the fact that he's a new face in a new place and it does take time to acclimate, but I could see Zetterlund putting some points on the board here. And we also got the Pinto Bean. All right, he's tooting in all our faces. Shane Pinto. He's doing stuff. 3 goals in 3 games. That's pretty nice. Nice scoring chances too in the last 3. So talk to me about those players. How would you rank them?
Yeah, I mean, ideally, you'd wait to see some line combinations before you're making this decision. If you absolutely had to make it today, I honestly think I would go Zetterlund first because I do think there's a world in which they kind of bring Cousins along a little bit more slowly on the third line and try to keep what's been working together.
Yep.
That I don't know if that's the most likely scenario, but it's at least a worry where I think Zetterlund slots in the top 6 immediately. So yeah, I think if you had to, and plus Zetterlund, like he's gonna hit, he's gonna get some blocks, he's gonna take some shots, like he's gonna do something out there. So it's definitely not a 0 you're taking with Zetterlund. So yeah, I think that's where I'm at, but I think Cousins probably does have a little bit more upside longer term, or if he goes straight to power play 1, that's at least an option for him, where I don't think it is for Zetterlund. So probably a ceiling versus floor case there.
Yep, I got you there. That makes sense. Let's move over to Vegas. Again, 4 games, 1 off night. We got Barbashev. I mean, he should probably be on a roster. Pavel Dorofeev, definitely on a roster. I love Pavel Dorofeev. You got Beefers, Keegan Kolesar, Braden McNabb, and then Riley Smith. I'm not interested in. I think it's, you're kind of approaching the bottom of the barrel if you're like, Riley Smith's out there, I gotta get him. Like, yeah, I guess you're what are you in, like a 20-team league or something? Yeah, guys catching strays on the pod here. I think it's Barbashev or Dorofeev. Talk to me about those 2 players. Which one are you taking?
Yeah, I would take Dorofeev right now. Barbashev was on the Kolesar Howden line, and obviously not on top power play where Dorofeev is, so that's a pretty easy decision for me at the moment. I know Barbashev has been hotter, scoring more points, but all the underlying metrics are much better for Dorofeev, so going that route for sure.
Yep. Last team I want to talk about here, Seattle Kraken. They play 3 games all on the off nights. And yeah, it's just a hard team to figure out for fantasy, that's for sure. Jared McCann, if he's out there, the guy's must add. 57% rostered. You got to have McCann on your roster for the ceiling play, and they've moved some pieces out. So, theoretically, maybe he gets more touches. Maybe they go to a top power play. I don't know. They're not doing that obviously right now, but yeah, I think McCann's got to be rostered. Eli Tolvanen is looking actually pretty darn good, but he's not getting very good minutes, and the production is not really there. But some of the underlyings are good. Shane Wright, Matty Beniers, Jaden Schwartz. Who's your Huckleberry on the Kraken here, Nate?
Yeah, ideally none of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
Jared
Slim
McCann,
pickings.
if he's been dropped in your league, then for sure 21st in shots per 60 over the last 5, so that's nice. Still not much in terms of the deployment, just over 16 minutes, so that's not ideal. Next up would be Jaden Schwartz for me. He's had some good stretches, 3 points his last 5, it's reasonable. I would love to say Shane Wright, but he's still getting under 15 minutes, so that's not ideal. Yeah, Tolvanen, Wright, Beniers, flip a coin, honestly, between these guys, and you'll be more likely to be right than I will be. If I had to order them, I would go Beniers, Wright, Tolvanen.
That's correct, Nate. All right.
All right.
Yeah, sweet. Tell us about the Patreon, Nate, and then we got to get into some streams. This episode's a beefer.
All right, supporter tier, $2 a month gets you access to patron-only live shows. There will be one coming up after the Puzzling Players episode on this upcoming Monday, so make sure you join before then if you want to get access to that. $8 a month gets you the Apples tier, access to patron-only live shows, patron-only Discord channels, gets you the show notes for this episode and the flagship episode as well. Also gets you access to the Apples and Geos player evaluation tool to help you make all these decisions that we're talking about here. For the true degenerates, the Genos tier exists. $15 a month gets you all the previous perks mentioned, plus all of your questions answered by yours truly, guaranteed. Blake, are you ready for the dream streams?
What an absolute pro. You know I'm ready, buddy. I've been dreaming about these streams.
All right, let's get into it. At the top of this list, basically, this is just a list of all of the best streaming options for point scoring, and I'm going to give you the top 10. I am basing this on off nights, so I am assuming that, the teams with the 4 off nights, you're getting them in for 4 games. The teams with 3 off nights, you're getting them in for 3 games. If that's not you, then you can move these guys around as you see fit, but with that in mind, top of the list, Nick Schmaltz, then Logan Cooley, then Barrett Hayton, 1, 2, 3, all Utah players there. Then Jonathan Drouin, Troy Terry, and then it feels like a big drop off for me. You go down to Mason McTavish, Jaden Schwartz, Trevor Zegras, and then another drop off, and you go Marco Casper, 4 games for the Red Wings, and then Matty Beniers at the bottom. What do you say about the list, Blake? What sticks out?
I'd throw Philip Hronik in there. I like Philip Hronik.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't know who I'd take out. Like you said, it's a big drop off. Maybe take Casper out of there, but he's got the 4 and 4, so I don't know.
All right. Best for hits, Jack McBain from Utah. You want to do your drop here, Blake?
What do you mean drop? Say hello to my music guy, Scoey. Jack McBain. Let's get silly.
Yeah, he does that. Marco Casper actually does that as well. He's got 30 hits in his last 10 games. I was surprised to see that. So he's
Beefcake.
throwing the body around for sure. Lawson Krause, Eli Tolvanen, Radko Gudas if he is available. Definitely worth checking out. Best for blocks, Ian Cole. He's been a block monster all year long for Utah. Jacob Trouba in Anaheim. John Marino, Simon Edvinson, and Ben Sherratt. Anything sticking out on the hit side or the block side, Blake?
No, but I really wish you used Ben Sherratt's nickname. It's the Shart. All right.
Right.
Ben the Shart Sherratt. All right.
All right. We'll keep it in the queue for next time.
Please do.
All right. Moving over to Hold Me. This is the section of the show where we talk about the players that we'd most like to hold, especially as we get to the end of the season. We need a little extra comfort, a little bit more security. We're starting to feel nervous about our fantasy teams and trying to bring home the championships. And these are the players that will provide us that security and that good feeling as we hold them. Top of the list, Logan Cooley, Marco Rossi, Nick Schmaltz, Troy Terry, JJ Paterka. I've moved up a lot. No chance he's gone out of Buffalo now, so he's getting that good schedule for sure, and he's been pretty hot over the last little bit. Adam Fantilli, Brian Rust, I've moved down just because of Pittsburgh's schedule over the playoffs. Josh Norris is moving way up here with the move to Buffalo. It's a good schedule there. Dmitry Voronkov, Tyler Toffoli, I've started to move down more and more with San Jose's schedule. Ryan Donato showing up on this list. I was convinced that Ryan Donato was going to get moved at this deadline. I basically didn't add him anywhere because I was so convinced that he was going to get moved any day now. And in the end, they just decided to re-sign him. So
shame.
Yeah, I guess fool me once there, but Quinton Byfield, Pavel Dorofeev, Jonathan Drouin, Alexei Protas, Evgeny Malkin, Boone Jenner, Kent Johnson, Ivan Barbashev round out the list. Really, I think you're focusing on the top guys, and there's definitely, Nick Schmaltz is only 27% rostered, Troy Terry's only 24% rostered. There's probably somebody in this list that's available in your league. What do you think about this list? Anybody you want to highlight, Blake?
It's a great list. I love that you highlighted Ryan Donato. I'm surprised that he's 41% rostered, but not. I mean, it makes sense because his production's been insane as of late. But yeah, that's high. I think that's a player. I was happy to see him stay in Chicago because yeah, we know what we have there, and yeah, he's continuing where he left off. So I'm a big fan of that player currently.
Great playoff schedule in Chicago
Yeah,
as
absolutely.
well. All right, sub 20% rostered. Oliver Bjorkstrand, you can take a look at that one. Mason McTavish, Barrett Hayton, Morgan Geeky, Kyle Palmieri, William Eklund, Will Smith, and Alex Laferriere. If you're going below the 10% rostered for your deep leagues, Gustav Nyquist with that Minnesota schedule. He hasn't done too much in Minnesota yet, but if you're like me and you drafted Kirill Kaprizov everywhere, Gustav Nyquist is soaking up at least some of those minutes, so that may be a route that you have to look at. Jaden Schwartz, Tyler Bertuzzi, Andrei Kuzmenko in the new spot, Trevor Zegras, Yuri Kulik, Marco Casper, and Matt Coronado rounded out. Of the lower roster players, Blake, who do you like here?
Not a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's slim pickings. I mean, Yuri Kulik, if he can, like, I know he was getting power play one, but now we got Norris in here. I'm just watching those lines. Like, I've
Mhm.
seen crazier things, like, oh, Josh Norris on power play two, and we got Yuri Kulik on power play one. Like, that could happen, and if it does, I'm very interested in that player.
All right, heading over to the defensemen. As we've mentioned, all the injuries to defensemen around the league, there's a lot of power play two guys who are now power play one guys, and we actually have some options here. Mason Lowry, Luke Hughes, Alex Vlasic in Chicago, obviously taking over for Seth Jones. Philip Pronek, Brady Shea, Rasmus Ristolainen stays in Philadelphia. So he's still got that spot. If you go sub 20% rostered, Mason Lowry, Alex Vlasic, Rasmus Ristolainen are all under that line of demarcation. Cam Fowler, Tony D'Angelo, and Zach Jones rounded out. Talk to me about the defense. You talked a little bit about Luke Hughes. You talked a little bit about Hronik. What do you see in guys like Vlasic, in guys like Shea?
I think they're absolutely worth rostering at this point. I think that this right here, these the long-term plays on defense are more valuable and probably more gettable than the forwards that you mentioned, right? Like in competitive leagues, a lot of those guys, if not all of them, are going to be rostered. But these players on defense, you could pick some of these players up. And I love, yeah, I think Alex Vlasic, we've seen proof of concept before when Seth Jones was injured. Vlasic did stuff. He got some power play points. He was able to man that power play there in Chicago, and he looked good doing it. So I'm a fan of that player. Brady Shea, it's been a slow go here. Obviously, Nashville has had an atrocious time this year converting on their chances. They haven't been terrible in generating offense, but converting has been league worst. You know, it's the proof is in the pudding. But I still think Brady Shea should be rostered. I have him in two spots. I can't drop him because he's getting power play one there, and they do have some players that should be able to put the biscuit in the basket. So I'm interested in both. And Rasmus Ristolainen not getting traded, that's great. Like I wasn't recommending him because I really thought they were going to trade him, but now that he's there, I've heard Torts talk about him that he likes his game. He's underrated. And if he's getting power play one out there on Philly, I'm interested in Rasmus Ristolainen for sure because he's got a good peripheral floor as well. So lots of value here. And you talked about Zach Jones as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's that he's worth a look if he's going to get power play one there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't mind any of that. It still feels like there's a good chance to me that Roman Yossi gets shut down at some point,
Yeah, like
similar to
why?
what you mentioned with Quinn Hughes. But yeah, Nashville has nothing to play for left at this point, so why are they rushing Roman Yossi back from an injury? Yeah, I think there's at least a chance that Yossi does get shut down for the year and Shea just plays it all out as top power play, and odds are that he'll get some decent amount of points, and Nashville does have a good playoff schedule there as well. So worth highlighting him for a moment there. In goal, we still have some pretty solid Zergy options, actually. Elvis Merzlikins, 37% rostered. Krell Vejmelka, 36% rostered. He got back-to-back starts for Utah here.
Yep.
Lucas Dostal, 42% rostered. Spencer Knight in Chicago has had a pair of really nice starts for Chicago in his introduction there. Samuel Urson has gotten a little bit dinged up as of late in terms of the goals against. But yeah, those are at least the top of the line options. Sub 25% rostered, it gets really rough. You're looking at guys like Nedeljkovic, you're looking at guys like Mrazek.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wasteland down there, but hopefully at least one of those top four, I think I would say right now for me, Merzlikins, Vimelka, Dostal, and Knight. How would you rank those guys, Blake? Put you on the spot here.
Of those five, I'd go Vejmelka first, then Merzlikins, then oh god, I like Knight. I think he's going to get some run there. Then I'd go Dostal, then Urson. I think that's how I'd rank him. How about you?
Yeah, the way I read it is the way I ranked it for now, but definitely open to moving it around. I think Bruce Legan's Vimelka is a little bit of a tier, and then Dostal Knight is another tier, maybe. But yeah, between those two pairings, I think you could make an argument either way. All right, one more order of business, and then we can get out of here. The head-to-head streamer deathmatch going exactly as you would expect. Blake has Ryan Donato, 18.25 points with one left. I have Troy Terry, did get a couple of assists, but he did absolutely nothing before that, so it's only 8 points with one left there. Blake, anything you want to say here?
Is anybody keeping track of this? Like, seriously, listen to the head-to-head streamer deathmatch. I'm not saying I know what I'm doing. I mean, I do know what I'm doing, but this is luck. So if I'm saying something, you need to go pick that player up and enjoy the benefits with me. All right. But like this, I'm on a heater right now. This is insane. I don't even know what to say about this.
Absolute heater of a lifetime. All right. If you made it this far in the episode, you should probably click on the link in the description.
Pat
Join
yourself
the
on the
Apples
back.
and Genos Discord community. Like, rate, review, subscribe, comment, whatever you can do really does help us out. But that's going to be all that we've got for this episode. Hopefully, it brought you some value, helped you get a little bit better at fantasy hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource.
Oh.
Many thanks to the band. They're there for supplying music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love.